Buggy suffered a tragedy that prevented his dream from coming true, but all that is changing, and I'm going to show you everything in today's video. So without further ado, let's go. From a very young age, Buggy carried something that few people around him could see, a genuine flame of ambition. He wasn't the cowardly theatrical pirate the world would later come to know. In the beginning, his heart was pure, focused, and full of dreams too big for his body size. He wanted to be someone on the sea. He wanted to be recognized as a great pirate, and not just a treasure thief wandering through the chaos. The truth is that Buggy started his life with a determination that would impress anyone who observed him without prejudice. This trajectory, however, did not follow the path his potential promised. A profound tragedy in his childhood destroyed his self-esteem, tearing apart the ambitious boy who existed within. Something broke Buggy inside, something that transformed him into the frustrated, insecure, and greedy adult we see decades later. From a promising boy, he became someone who masks fear with arrogance and an internal wound with sarcasm, but the root of it has always been the trauma that marked him forever. Even so, the universe seemed to insist that Buggy had a greater destiny. He was born on the Grand Line, the cradle of monsters and legends, and still very young, he managed to join the most colossal crew in history, the Roger Pirates. Few people grasp what it means to survive that era, much less be part of such a group. But Buggy did. He lived daily surrounded by geniuses, monsters, and men who would shape the world, and he belonged in that scenario. It was in this environment that his deep relationship with Shanks flourished. The two were apprentices, almost brothers, inseparable partners, but as different as water and gunpowder. Buggy was obsessed with safety, money, and stability. Shanks, on the contrary, was driven by freedom, lightheartedness, and a natural talent that always put him 2 steps ahead. Even so, their friendship was real. Both had dreams, both had a future, both believed that one day they would follow through together. And Buggy, even with his fears, fought countless times alongside the Pirate King's crew. He witnessed legendary battles, faced the Whitebeard pirates, dealt with the brutality of Shiki's subordinates, and even survived confrontations with the new generation that was emerging in Newgate's crew. He trembled, yes, but he never fled when his crewmates were threatened, and that says much more about his courage than any title. The training with Rayleigh also shaped this hidden potential. The Dark King doesn't waste time with just anyone, and Buggy, despite being clumsy and whiny, received direct instruction. This shows that, from an early age, Rayleigh knew that this boy had something special, something that Buggy himself couldn't see. But the bitter turn in his destiny happened at Laughtail. The boy who dreamed so much of reaching the end of the world simply couldn't go. An illness struck him down at the worst possible moment. He lost the chance to witness the planet's greatest secret. And worse, he saw Shanks give up that moment to stay by his side. That unified the two even more, but it also germinated a future weight on Buggy's conscience. Because, after Roger's death, Buggy believed he would continue the journey with Shanks. He placed all his hope in his friend. He thought that together, they would head toward the One Piece, that the dream wouldn't end there. But Shanks gave up. And right there, in that instant, Buggy's heart imploded. He lost Roger, he lost the crew, he lost Laughtail, and he lost the future he had imagined. It was as if all that was left was an irreparable void. Guilt corroded Buggy inside. He believed that Shanks didn't move forward because of him, because Buggy was left behind, because he was weak, because he held his friend back. This turned into resentment, frustration, and inferiority. When he sees the straw hat on Luffy's head, all that pain returns. That's why he aims for the hat, not the boy. It's a wound from the past trying to forcefully heal. The following 20 years were a graveyard of dreams. Buggy became a mediocre pirate in the East Blue, living a life he never wanted, a distorted version of himself, like a tragic what-if of a boy who had everything to shine. But fate, or his extremely strange luck, never completely abandoned him. What seemed like bad luck repeatedly turned into opportunity. From a prisoner, he became a leader. From a failure, he became a Shichibukai. From a joke, he became a Yonko, always by accident. But this ascent was false. Behind the title of Yonko, Buggy was a puppet manipulated by Crocodile and Mihawk, humiliated daily, living as a hostage to his own allies, while the world believed in a distorted legend. The facade shone, but inside he was about to break. It was then that, at the lowest point of his life, something awakened. Amidst the chaos, the pressure from the 2 monsters beside him, and the constant threat of death, Buggy broke through his own shell. His true dream was born there, to be the Pirate King. Not as a copy, not as Shanks' shadow, not as Roger's substitute, but as Buggy, the clown who carries a tragedy and a newborn determination. His speech to the Cross Guild was an explosion of sincerity and strength. He spoke with the heart of someone who almost lost everything to a harsh reality, someone who finally decided to fight for what he always wanted, without excuses, without running, without fear. And in that instant, his followers saw him for who he truly was, someone with an unbreakable will. This transformed Buggy. Will is the essence of power in the world of One Piece, and when that will awakens, Haki awakens with it. The possibility of Buggy manifesting impressive Haki is not absurd, it's a narrative consequence. He has charisma, he has fanatical followers, he has recognized potential, he has luck that defies logic, and now he has purpose. In a world where Roger and Garp, even by combining their Supreme King's Haki, needed to combine extreme attacks to take down a Rox totally possessed by Imu's powers, a Rox who nullified blows of absurd level, it's clear that only raw determination molds monsters, and ironically, this same type of determination has finally been born within Buggy. He has all the elements for one of the greatest plot twists in history: tragedy, fall, shadow, ascent, and destiny reclaimed. Buggy may not only reach the One Piece, but he might even be, symbolically, one of the biggest candidates for the title he was so afraid to pursue. Because perhaps Luffy is destined for something even greater than simply being the Pirate King. Buggy, on the other hand, might be exactly the kind of imperfect, unlikely, and human king the world didn't expect. But the story has always prepared. Buggy may have spent the entire work as a walking joke in the eyes of the public, but Oda always treated him as a character too valuable to disappear. And now, in the final arc, this becomes evident. Every narrative choice involving Buggy was built to position him exactly where he is today, at the center of the political map, with global influence, loyal followers, and powerful enemies. He is a Yonko not by chance, but because of a consistent pattern of destiny, luck, and connections that have always surrounded him. And curiously, it is precisely his apparently fragile stance that makes him indispensable. All the other Yonko are treated as devastating threats, monsters capable of destroying islands with their hands. Buggy, on the other hand, stands out precisely for being the opposite, an unlikely pirate king. This paradoxically makes him the most dangerous narrative piece. While the great monsters destroy each other, Buggy moves through the empty spaces, occupying territory without ever implying that he is a real risk. In the final war against the world government, more than brute force will be needed. Chaos, influence, politics, information, unexpected alliances, and most importantly, someone capable of moving entire masses without realizing they are doing so will be needed. And Buggy, with his cross guild, fits exactly into this gap. He has fanatical followers, a worldwide reputation, and above all, his presence generates instant mobilization. People move for him without him having to lift a finger. Furthermore, the Cross Guild has a strategic role that no other faction has, a bounty system against the Navy. This is a greater threat than many imagine. For the first time in history, the world government is being openly hunted by common pirates. This puts constant pressure on the Marines, weakens morale, destabilizes routes, creates local rebellions, and most importantly, shows the world that the government's power is not absolute. And all of this is due to the organization of which Buggy is the public face. Another point that makes Buggy essential is his symbolism. He is the last living and active link to Roger's legacy, and not as an invincible monster, but as an ordinary person who stood beside the Pirate King. In a world about to explode into a global war against the world government, Roger's stories and memories will be fundamental to inspire undecided allies. Buggy can be the emotional bridge between the past and the future, the accessible face of the legacy of the man who changed the world. Shanks, on the other hand, represents the divinity of the past. Buggy represents humanity. It is a powerful symbology that Oda has always explored in small doses, but which can now reach its climax. We also cannot ignore the fact that Buggy has finally defined his dream, to be the Pirate King. This changes everything, because before, his existence was a constant stumble, a life without direction. Now he follows a real goal, even if wrapped in fear and nervousness, and real dreams attract real allies. Buggy's newfound determination may indeed awaken his Haki, even a dormant king's Haki, if Oda follows the poetic logic of the work. In a scenario where Luffy will be busy facing Imu, the world government, the Void Century, and the greatest confrontation in One Piece history, someone will need to assume equally vital parallel functions, and Buggy can occupy exactly that space, commanding the Cross Guild on the opposite front, opening routes, creating distractions, mobilizing pirates, and even leading entire territories against the government. And there's an even more interesting detail. Buggy was never loyal to the world government. He never had ties, never received real benefits, never asked for permission. He is, by definition, the purest pirate among pirates. This makes him a spontaneous, unpredictable threat, and at the same time completely coherent within the final narrative. Other characters with great powers are obvious. Buggy is the unexpected, and it is precisely the unexpected that changes stories. When the world is about to crumble, when Luffy fights in Elbaf, when Imu unleashes their full power, when the world government tries to destroy the world for the second time, Buggy may be exactly the catalyst that tips the scales. Whether by mobilizing crowds, leading a disorganized invasion, inspiring smaller pirates, or simply being in the right place at the right time, his impact will be felt. Imagine the poetic irony of the entire work culminating with Buggy being a direct part of the downfall of the world government. Not as a warrior, but as a social phenomenon. A man who, without realizing it, destroyed the very image of absolute power. Because in the end, Buggy's true weapon is not his devil fruit, his strength, or his intelligence. It's the way the world perceives him, and how that translates into real strength. If there is anyone with the potential to turn the tables in the final chaos, that someone is Buggy. Not because he is strong, but because the entire world believes he is, and that belief, in One Piece, is worth more than any monstrous punch. And it is precisely for this reason that, in the final arc, Buggy ceases to be just a comic element and becomes a symbol of the very chaos that is engulfing the world. While giants, lost gods, ancient bloodlines, and mythological monsters fight colossal battles, Buggy represents the common man who, by a twist of fate, rises in the midst of the titans and alters the course of history with his mere existence. He doesn't need to destroy mountains, he just needs to exist to move crowds. And when the final dust settles, when the world government collapses and the world faces a new era, Buggy may be remembered not as the most powerful pirate, but as the most impactful. The one who, unintentionally, accelerated the fall of the oppressors, inspired revolts, became the living image of popular rebellion, and proved that even the most unlikely of men can influence the destiny of the world. His role will not be measured in strength, but in consequence. Therefore, in the final saga of One Piece, Buggy does not just might be important, he inevitably will be. Whether as a catalyst, symbol, involuntary leader, or key piece of global influence, his presence will echo throughout the world. And when it's all over, it will be clear that the clown the world mocked was in fact one of the pillars that sustained the most gigantic turning point in history. Buggy, the improbable, the accidental, the inevitable, the man who, even trying to run away from his destiny, will end up forever etched in legend. But comment on what you thought of all this, and don't forget to like. Thank you very much for all your support, and until the next one.